So today we're going to do an unboxing. I got a new tent, a Eureka Timberline SQ Outfitter 6-person tent. And so this is the box. And if you guys notice, I've probably never done any box openings. And it's got some stuff written on it. Tells you a little bit about the tent. Pretty vague. And this here all happens not to be in English at all. And then we find that English is over here, but without the pictures. It's kind of weird. They give you not, I don't know. But anyhow, let's go. Oh shoot, too late. I already opened it. So let's go take a look at this tent. Now, it's not fully expanded on the sides. There's 2 guidelines right here, and actually up under here, the rain fly attaches to the tent. So when you pull this out, the tent comes out with it. Let's see if we can show that. So it actually gives you a little bit more volume inside. So right off the bat, so I already had a Eureka 6-man Timberline tent, but it was about 10 plus years old, and the rain fly went bad, so I had to replace it. But I'll tell you some of the points different that I like and don't like between them. Right off the bat, this here being plastic is nice. The original one was metal with like a snap clip, and it was very hard to get on and off. But it did last 10 years, so we'll see how long this piece of plastic, if this was like some kind of metal or something, it might have been a little better. But I like the way this little pin just pushes through the D-ring, and these are hard to do with one hand, so it just makes it simpler to put on. So you have 3 attachment points at the side for the, or actually 5 plus your ends. So this here is going to get down, you know, staked down, pulled out, and then your rain fly is snapped into this, and then the poles go through the end, this tag line here on the tent bottom tub, and then that just snaps in and this pulls over. So you have 3 points up here. You also have 2 points at the very top that you could pull down, and then the bottom ones that actually help hold it open and get you more ventilation. So in reality, I think that, other than like probably heavy snowy conditions, I don't think you'd ever have a problem with worrying about not being able to tie this tent down enough to keep it from blowing away if you had the proper stakes. And this tent's so big, it's hard to get it in one shot here, but I'll do what I can. So the front and back are identical. You have a D-shaped door in the front and in the back with full screening. So it's kind of like a little, the vestibule sides will tag out, so you get a little bit more. What I'm going to do is tear this all back down and put it outside and actually stake it out a little bit. For the most part, I only use the 2 at the bottom. I don't do the 2 at the or the other ones unless it's really crazy. I haven't seen it really crazy. It's a little different color than the original one. Reason I bought this tent was I like the form factor. Being in Florida, and everywhere is going to be different how your tent's going to need to function. This, first of all, this tent here is almost never going to go in a kayak with us, but actually in another week it is going in a kayak with us because my daughter is going with us, so we need 3 people in. And I'll break it down between 3 kayaks, and everybody will carry a part of it, and it won't really be that bad. But it's just really too big for just 2 people. And actually I have a smaller identical tent for 2 people. So let's go. Oh, so one of the other things they've changed is, if you notice the top up here, let me try to get out of the sun. Right there, that little bump out is actually a spreader bar. So it not only spreads the rain fly, but it's also pulling open the inside of the tent itself. So you got your big door. It has a tie back. So here we go up here. You can see how wide that is. And I'm actually standing up walking in here right now. It's like 6'4" to the highest point. So the fly is already pre-seam taped. I'm going to do a little bit on the very front, but there really isn't a lot to do. I mean, the tub is solid and taped, you know, it's welded really in the corners, and you can see how high it comes up. And then in each corner, there's this little light catch pocket, and then the sides are breathable, but up at the top they've added this area here on both sides for even more ventilation. And I only seen one video on this tent. The person was saying something about being in the cold weather, but I don't know in the cold weather when I would expect to need the ventilation more, because the humidity coming off our bodies and the condensation on the inside, I would want this to actually air better. That's why you have better sleeping gear, warmer bags. So you have a D-ring up in the corner up here, top, both sides, and they make an accessory like mesh shelf that you can put up there more or less, or you could hang a line and hang something up there. Things I didn't like on the inside were the doors. These little tie-offs, they actually hold it up out of the way, or to hold the door completely out of the way. See, right now I have that one half and there's a little tie there. But when I went to try to pull it all the way up, it really just seems, even with the zipper, see, the zipper doesn't go all the way into the corner. So when you go to pull this back, to actually use that loop, let's see if I can get this in the video. You see how it pulls on everything? It's like they didn't make, this is adjustable, but even adjusted all the way out, it still seems really tight. It just seems like this needed to be longer. And I can't remember, and we'll see. I'm going to put the old tent body up and compare it to this one. I don't have the rain fly for it anymore, but either in my 2-man or in the 6-man, the door was actually set up where it ventilated. At the bottom it had an opening, then it was solid, and then it had an opening at the top, which I kind of like, because you can open the one at the top, leave the one at the bottom closed. If you're with a group of people, it's not like people can see right in your tent. But I mean, it's huge. I've never needed a vestibule. I could get any gear in here, plus my wife, that I needed. So they do have a vestibule, but to me it kind of takes out the main reason I like the tent, is because, getting back to the point I was making before, you're able to set this tent up here in Florida in a way that you get airflow straight through it. And it's the airflow that you need here the most. The dome tents, and I had an old Eureka dome tent, and it's one of those things, I don't think without jumping into a way higher price tent that I would get more value for the dollar or more performance. I just, 10 plus years out of the last one, and I blame myself for some of it, because I stored it outside in our garage, and you know, we have 8 months of 90-degree weather here, and it basically cooked. The material was perfectly fine, and it was still shedding water. The problem was this inside here had become so sticky that it was sticking to itself and pulling off. And I tried a couple techniques that I read about trying to get it off, and it would not come off. And it got to the point where I was probably doing damage to the material itself, and I'm not going out with a piece of gear that I can't count on, because it isn't like it's easy to rectify your tent leaking in Florida. Really hard to get a video of this because it's so big. Sorry, I'm out on my patio, stepping in cat litter right now. Alright, Let me put the other one up and we'll do a comparison. I'll take the rain fly off this one. So I recorded it over there, and we get a better idea how the tent looks set up. So you can see how that holds that opening up there open, gives you a little bit more headroom. You can also see that there's a little bit more clipping, and because of the part up there, the spreader bar, you know, your time to set up is a little bit longer. When you get in, I mean, it definitely, it's hard to get a good shot of that, adds quite a bit of headroom space. You know, and once again, what I'll do is when I put the rainfly on here, I'll stake this out so we can see inside. So here's what I was saying. So now the tent's pulled tight, unless this is just meant to grab this. And up here, this ring, maybe. It's hard to tell. And since there's no real instructions on how that works, it's hard to say. Quality wise, you know, I don't knock it, it's solid. And here's the old one. I can't remember what the anniversary year was for these tents, but I bought this and the 2-man at the same year. It was the year my Eureka dome went dead. And it was just seeping a little bit. It was just getting old, and it was a little small, and I really bought it when I was way smaller and didn't know quite as much, and didn't realize how this style tent, we used this style tent when I was in the Boy Scouts, but the smaller ones. And I think this was the official, the 2-man was the official Boy Scout tent. So when you put this one up, you could see that it only had 1 clip versus the 3 clips over here. And it used bungees up there that went across that spreader bar. And it kind of gave you that flat top where this one kind of peeks out. But you can also see, let's go in. So inside, let's pull this back. See, the headroom was a little bit more in the new tent, but I mean, for an average person in a tent, I mean, this is kicking butt here. So here's kind of what I was talking about, the door panel, what I liked, which I'm really not sure what kind of thought process goes on when you remove something like this, but you could roll this down like that and have the whole top open in the tent and get air through here much better, where you're not opening like half the door. So if you're at like a campground or whatever, everybody's looking in. If you have a light on, I mean, here you could have that zipped up a little bit further and put a light on it. And what we would do is actually, see, there's a smaller screen down here, right there, that you would have this one open, and then at your feet you could open this little one, which once again, unless somebody was crawling around on the ground, you get airflow in and out of the tent, or vice versa. It just gave you, I thought, a little bit more control over the ventilation in the tent. And here, that is probably the biggest issue, I think. And I mean, it had little metal hooks, but once again, I mean, this just pulled right up, and because the cuts are a little bit further up and further that way, it's not pulling on the tent. And you could just pull this out of the way if you want the whole thing open, or if you want it to screen, you just roll it down and it's cinched off down here at the bottom. I mean, it was just high, simple. And I mean, you have a, sorry for jumping around like this, but it's the only way I can think of doing this. And I don't have anybody employed by me yet that will videotape for me. And my dog, he just refuses to. He says, it's your channel, you deal with it. So, but see how much air you're getting through here? Yeah, the D door you're getting more, but you have less control over minimizing it or trying to shelter yourself and still keep airflow. I mean, this flows air. Those new vents up at the top in the new tent are definitely going to flow more air. But you kind of lose some control. And this is really, other than not being round, where you can roll the zipper all the way around the door, I mean, it still has 2 zippers, and you have to use basically 2 zippers if you don't want to open the whole thing to go out at night. Because I usually just open the corner or whatever and just crawl through. So, and it also had hoops for a bin or whatever. And actually, let me get this out of here because I don't know what I'm going to do with this tent yet. But we would just put a carabiner up here, and we had a little light that we would hang on it. And it had 2 of those little mesh pockets on each side. I mean, as you can tell, this tent's seen a good bit of use over the years, and I think it's 12 plus years old. At least 10 plus. And if it wasn't for the waterproofing film on the inside, I would still be using that tent. I wouldn't have had to spend, I don't want to go in the money, because you can find it for different prices and it's up to you to find the best price. But it's not a cheap tent. But to get this big of a tent and a better quality tent, and now we're really stretching it out into like Hildenberg and a few others, the quality isn't there. I mean, yeah, you can get the big family tents, but for the most part, they aren't going to stand up in a Florida storm. That tent there, multiple times on beach fronts, has stood up to frickin' 50 mile an hour gusts coming off the front edge of a storm coming in the summer. And I had my whole tarp blow away, and that tent was still up, and that's where we sheltered down until the front blew over. And here, you can get that for 5 minutes. You can get it for 10. You can get like 4 of them right off the front of the storm, and the storm only lasts 30 minutes, and it's gone, and it's sunny, and the day's moving on again. That's what we call Florida weather. So there's an idea. So what I'm going to do is I'll rain fly this one, just to show you what's involved in that. So this one takes a little bit longer. It's a little bit more involved. One thing I do like about the older style, and I only had to do it once, but it worked out good, was I was able to build the frame and throw the rain fly over it, and then put the tent together underneath it and use the rain fly as a little bit of shelter. It's not designed to do that, but if you're inventive and you play with the tent enough, you could figure out a way to do it. This one here, I don't know if you'd be able to do it. You might be able to get it together and do it if you don't put the spreader bar on the top and then come back after the storm and stick it in. But it's nice. We'll make it work. I might have to add something to this green over there just so you can tie it back a little easier, because I don't want to stress the tent. And I'll get it staked out. We'll take a look on the inside after I get that done. And it's slightly bluer, more of a teal maybe, yeah, and this was actually green. And what's funny is the high-low door exchange was like a key point of this tent when they first brought it out. Okay. Okay, so pretty much all staked out except for the high wind stakage. I mean, on an average day like today, I don't see a point in them. And I may end up staking this middle one out right here just to help with the ventilation. But you can see this one where the other tent really had the little overhang part at the top, and then that edge line right there that now forms like a very small vestibule actually tapered back to the back corner, back to the tent. And it gave you just enough to give you some extra coverage over the door, and not really a vestibule. So I was saying earlier, you can get a vestibule for this tent, but my problem with that is that it doesn't have a screen door. So now the whole point of why I like the tent, of being able to get the cross ventilation, goes away. So that's why I will probably never get the vestibule for this tent. You can see how that pulls that out. You can see how the air is flowing right up in there. And it's kind of hard to see. But you see you got good, you know, where if we pulled that out in the center a little bit, that might help, but you have good airflow through here. It's windy today, and actually if I was actually setting up the tent, you got to be careful a little bit though, because if you set with the wind, you could get direct rain being blown into the tent. It's a give and take. You just have to learn to play with it a little bit. Florida tent's been up for like how long? Already bugs in it. But you can see how that pulled the sides out. It gives you more room because of the little, I don't know if we'll be able to see them. See the little tabs up? It's hard for me to see what you're seeing right now because I'm not that way to go. And if I put a longer string out here, I could pull this out. And of course I'll have to change out all but like 4 of the stakes that come with it. That's not unusual. One thing I'll tell you what I would like to see. So this is a little pull tab because there's a little boot up under here that the pole slides into. Well, it takes a little bit to get it in there, and there's barely enough for you to get a good grip on to pull it out. Same underneath where the spreader bar goes in. Kind of a pain in the butt. Kind of funny, they actually put reflective tape here, but didn't send out reflective lines. And actually I'm working on a little guideline hack that I might take out with me on this trip and make a little video of it. Pretty simple, but I'll leave it for another video. All in all, looks like a good tent. We'll know after this camping trip. Went up fairly simple. A little bit longer than the old tent because it's got a few more parts. A little bit lighter than the old tent because it's got newer technology. And it's got the DAC poles. And if you're in the camping community or backpacking or anything, you know DAC. Their aluminum's like some of the best. Their poles, their hiking poles, anything made with their aluminum. Strong, lightweight, durable. And this uses some kind of new anodizing coating they use on there uses less fresh water, so it's more environmentally friendly. Alright, I'm going to end this because this dragged out forever, but I only saw one video on this tent and it really wasn't super detailed, and I wanted to try to get as much in as possible. So anybody that's interested, and I'll tell you, the smaller, there's a 4-man and a 2-man, are very similar in technology. It just, they condensed it down a little bit, but basic setups and everything, at least in the old model, were almost identical. Once again, pretty roomy. Easily get 3 people in here with the big air mattress. We have a twin, and we sleep with just a sheet and a cover on the top because the mattresses are R-rated. That's not really, I guess that's not a good way to put it. They're insulated, so they have an R factor. I guess sometimes they might be R-rated. All right, thanks.